if you believe the polls, Republicans are on course to winning the House and maybe the Senate too come November and the midterms. And what's their agenda for when they take control? They don't have one. The Republican leader of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, has rather conveniently told colleagues there would be no formal outline of what his party would do if it regained the majority. So what are Democrats supposed to attack as the midterms fast approach? Easy. Focus on what Republicans are saying and doing right now in front of our eyes. State Republicans are talking about complete abortion bans. Forget incest or rape exceptions or the mother's health. A hugely unpopular and hugely controversial move. So that's one thing they stand for and want to do. How about helping Ukraine? Republican Rand Paul in the Senate last week blocked $40 billion in aid to the people of Ukraine. Again, hugely unpopular and hugely controversial. And then there's the racist, anti-immigrant great replacement theory, which the alleged Buffalo shooter subscribed to, and which a number of House Republicans also publicly and proudly and shamelessly subscribed to. Texas Congressman Pete Sessions backed the conspiracy during an interview just a few weeks ago. Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz tweeted last fall that replacement theory explains what is happening to America. And Elise Stefanik, now in the number 3 leadership position among House Republicans, warned in an ad last fall that amnesty for undocumented immigrants would overthrow our current electorate. And how did Stefanik and Gaetz respond after the Buffalo shooting at the weekend? They just doubled down. Stefanik, whose upstate New York district touches the Canadian border, not the southern border, tweeted on Monday that Democrats desperately want wide-open borders and mass amnesty for illegals, allowing them to vote. Matt Gaetz told Newsweek on Monday, Democrats seek unchecked immigration to replace the people who have relied on them most. Republicans have made it all but impossible to avoid that new and shocking talking point of theirs. They've brought the racist message of great replacement to hearings on Capitol Hill, to Twitter, to Fox, and yes, to the campaign trail. So you might think Democrats would go after them on that very issue, call them out by name, do a full court press against GOP extremism on race, on abortion, on Ukraine. I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? A gimme. It's almost T-ball. Well, I wish I could say they were flooding the airwaves and social media with attack ads. I wish I had sound bites and tweets to show you of Democrat after Democrat calling out Republicans by name over the past 24 or 48 hours. Instead, I have this.
These hard-right MAGA Republicans argue that people of color and minority communities are somehow posing a threat to the American way of life. This is replacement theory in a nutshell.
Oh, you missed those comments from Monday, did you? You're saying you don't binge C-SPAN all day long? Chuck Schumer, the majority leader, called out Fox and host Tucker Carlson, but he did not name any of those Republicans he and Nancy Pelosi go up against in Congress every day, who have spread this nasty conspiracy that has proven deadly again and again. Why not? Why not condemn them by name? And by the way, where is Speaker Pelosi in all this? To miss these open goals is just political malpractice. The president was in Buffalo Tuesday visiting the scene of the massacre, and he wouldn't go after the Republicans either.
I call on all Americans to reject the lie, and I condemn those who spread the lie for power, political gain, and for profit.
Great, Mr. President. How about you tell the voters who they are? How about you name names rather than do that whole ultra-MAGA vague shtick you've been doing recently? Look, right now in America, you have one party accusing the other of being pedophiles, groomers, communists, and you have that other party refusing to respond, occupying some mystical moral high ground as they head for a shellacking in November. And if you think Democratic Party leaders in the White House and the Senate and the House of Representatives are bad on this, regular members of Congress aren't any better. In fact, in some cases, they're worse. Quote, asked about calling out Republicans and Fox News over replacement theory, Senator John Tester, Democrat of Montana, said, yeah, I'm not going to go down that road. We'll let them do that. Why? Why concede on this critical issue? What are Democrats afraid of? John Tester doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's afraid of anything. And yet, Democrats on the Hill could all learn a thing or two from one House Democrat who does know how to call out her Republican colleagues. Progressive Congresswoman Cori Bush of Missouri. She introduced a resolution last year calling for the expulsion of House Republicans who might have helped incite the January 6th attack. She's called out conservative Congressman Paul Gosar by name, someone who in between visits to white nationalist conferences posted a video depicting violence against both AOC and President Biden. When a COVID eviction moratorium was set to expire last year, she single-handedly pressured her colleagues into supporting an extension by sleeping on the Capitol steps for days on end. Cori Bush knows how to push back against Republicans, but she also knows how to push back against her own side of the aisle when necessary too. So what advice does she have for her own party ahead of these crucial midterm elections? Congresswoman Bush joins me now. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. Senator Chuck Schumer on Monday called out Fox and referenced MAGA Republicans. But isn't it essential to point out that this conspiracy theory replacement is getting a boost from specific House Republicans? Why not call them out by name?
You know, one thing is, this is not new. Great replacement theory. I remember hearing it when I was a child, when I was in school, and it was something that it was like, oh, you have to be prepared because this thing is going to happen. So it's like Tuesday. Every day there's something. There is not a day that I wake up in these here United States as a Black woman that there is not something that not only me, but so many others have to face and deal with as it relates to whether it's our race or it's the culture. So we have to call a thing. And so I have been very clear. When you see white supremacy, you call it white supremacy, and you have to call it by name. The same way that we say, if it's abortion, we say abortion. If it's hate, we say hate. If it's whatever, you call that thing what it is. So for us, if we don't get to call it by name, then how do you appropriately address the issue if nobody knows what it is? So for this great replacement theory, even though we've heard about it for such a long time, and it's being pushed out again, it's being pushed out even the more. We have social media now. We have all of these videos. We have this emboldened far right, I guess what people would call it. But we have these racists, folks call them white nationalists, all of that are speaking this. Call them out. But I'll say this, they know who they are. And I just, there is no place for those folks in the United States Congress, any place in the Congress. And so, me personally, I don't mind calling folks by name. But the other thing with that, though, is we also don't want to toss attention at folks to give them a bigger platform. So then there's that, too. So just like being clear about what the message is and what needs to happen.
So the problem is, of course, is that a lot of leaders in your party are willing to say white supremacy is bad. They have in the last couple of days said Fox should stop promoting it. But when it comes to the Republican Party, there is still this desire to hold on to some idea of a Republican Party that no longer exists anymore. Have a listen to Nancy Pelosi speaking just the other day about the Republican Party. Listen to the language she used.
Rather than saying, well, we have to defeat them, no, let's just try to persuade them. Here I am, Nancy Pelosi, saying this country needs a strong Republican Party, and we do. Not a cult, but a strong Republican Party.
It's not exactly fighting words there, is it? You have the leader of your party in the House saying, I wish we had a better Republican Party. I mean, Republicans don't go around saying, I wish we had better Democrats. They call you pedophiles. And yet you guys seem to always approach this with kid gloves when it comes to the Republican Party.
Hey, that applies to some folks. It doesn't apply to everyone. So I won't take the you guys, but because I'm just not one of those people.
The party leadership. Well, the party leadership. To be fair, look, I introduced you saying that you're not someone who does hold back, which is why we have you on the show today. But I'm wondering what you make of your leader, your president, your speaker.
Absolutely. They have a way that they believe things should be done. But you know what? Over the last several years, there have been more folks coming into Congress that believe that we have fought the things that we've fought for so long, because we need to start calling things out and being more direct. But I understand that also there is this big push for bipartisanship within the House, and I hear it all the time. But for me, I'm thinking about how this idea of the Great Replacement theory, how that affects the people in St. Louis. I'm thinking about how that affects students that are told that they cannot learn about the transatlantic slave trade. They cannot hear about slavery. They cannot hear about Jim Crow in their schools, but they are supposed to be able to hear about this Great Replacement theory. And so in the same way that this has come against us, that hearing the truth about the history, what has happened to my ancestors in this country and the ancestors of so many others, if hearing that is a problem because it's actual truth, and then hearing this about this Great Replacement theory, and then the folks that actually want to see this happen, if we can't come against that, then there is a problem, because the problem will be folks like us continue to be hurt.
So let's talk about another issue that the party grassroots would like to see the party leadership take a more aggressive stance on, and that's abortion rights. You've spoken powerfully and publicly about your own experiences getting an abortion. What more do you want to see from Democrats, from your own party, as the Supreme Court's conservative majority appears set to overturn Roe v. Wade, and Republican governors are eyeing total abortion bans?
Yeah. So, looking at how many people, we're talking about more than 36 million people who will be directly affected, thinking about the folks like me who were in a position where we needed to have access to abortion, where we didn't have the means, we needed to be able to make this decision on our own, and for that decision to be available. Thinking about that being stripped away from them, I think right now we have to be clear that abortion is still legal, and we have to be clear that this thing has not happened yet. And for me, I remember being told, "Oh, we can't get an eviction moratorium. Oh, we can't get an extension. It just won't happen. Things are done." Well, it's impossible. I remember hearing that, and we decided to work and to do what we could to make sure that we did something. Well, in this moment is the same thing. I know that we're hearing that this is the decision that will be written, and it's coming, and it's inevitable, and there's no amount of pressure from communities or from people or advocates that will change that. But I'm one to believe that that's not true, that we have to work. And that is what we've been doing. We've been in our communities, we've been pushing. And so working with the
But advocates. Are you satisfied, Congresswoman, with how your party leadership has dealt with this issue? We've discussed on this show before, where was the response? Why was there not a response ready to go? The Republicans have been planning to do this for years, but Democrats seem to now be reacting, saying, well, what can we do to stop this, rather than have a plan ready to go?
Yeah. You know what? The thing is, I got here a year ago, and so the work that we've been able to do over the last year, knowing that this was coming, but I'll say this, even before coming here, as an advocate and an activist in the community, we knew for a long time. I remember being out on the streets when Brett Kavanaugh was about to be confirmed, and we had an occupation out on the ground in front of our senator's office. We were doing the work. So working with those advocates, working and activists, and then continuing to work with those in Congress. So pulling that forward now, we're still doing the same thing. But I think right now, not being able to get the vote in the Senate, that is absolutely shameful, that we just don't have the votes needed in the Senate to be able to codify Roe v. Wade, to make sure that that our states will not be able to prohibit or regulate our abortion rights. And so looking for our president, we want to see our president come down, and, there is some more political capital. I think about our former president, Trump. he expended political capital he didn't even have. It was like he wrote bad checks, all the time. Like he was just pulling up, he was just making more political capital and just doing things, So our president, having more of those conversations with Congress, trying to with the Senate, how can we get this thing done? And what about carving out? I know that people don't want to talk about abolishing the filibuster. We know, we keep hearing it, but what about a carve out? There was a carve out for debt relief. There was a carve out for, we had the conversations about voting rights. There's a carve out to Mitch McConnell was able to, carve outs to get Supreme Court justices. So why can't we have that now?
Last quick question before we run out of time. You were an activist, as you mentioned. You were outspoken on criminal justice issues. When you hear fellow House Democrats like Abigail Spanberger, Josh Gottheimer, and other quote-unquote centrists still railing against defund the police, even though it's not a Democratic Party policy, it's not actually happening anywhere right now, do you sense that a lot of Democrats are trying to preemptively blame your progressive wing of the party ahead of a 2022 midterm defeat?
I don't know what I can't speak for what they're doing. All I know is that we'll continue to do the work that we've been doing. We have been, progressives are here to make sure that those who have been left out, those who didn't have a voice, those who have been pushed back for so long, that they are actually seen, heard, and their needs are being addressed. That's why we're here. And so we'll continue to do that. And they can join us. They can join us and make sure that their work is to help all people, not just some of the people.